Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Eye of Africa. I am your host, Aina Fadina. Today we are talking to the founder of Hopstop and Bigmix, Chinedu Echeuro. Chinedu, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you. So you've had a very interesting journey in terms of being one of the first, should we say, innovators of apps. You developed Hopstop.
Yes.
And then you had another venture, RapalaG, and now you have KickMe.
KickMe, yes.
So let's backtrack. You were born and raised in Nigeria.
Yes, I was. I went to school at King's College, which is the oldest secondary school in Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
But I left prior to finishing, so I left when I was 16, and I left from SS1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about going to King's College and being in boarding school?
So I lived in the East, Imo State, and when I got into King's College, I remember having to drive. I think it was 5 or 6 hours, to the school. And I was 12. I had never really lived outside home, and so they drop your bags off. They give you some provisions and some money, and say we'll see you in a few months. So it was definitely a good learning experience because you actually learn to be independent. Right? You learn to wash your own clothes, show up in time for food, because they will eat your food, and do your work. So it's from a responsibility perspective, it was really great experience. Yeah.
Do you think that shaped who you are as a person in terms of being an entrepreneur and sort of just letting go and letting the universe sort of works its place, but doing the work at the same time, obviously?
Yeah, I won't quite say. I think I learned a different set of skills. I think self-independence was probably the biggest one, right? So if you're 12 years old, you have to learn how to do things for yourself. Definitely a level of work ethic that's required because you had to wake up early to avoid all the mess with the senior boys and all that. But in general, I think it just helped build a sense of confidence and independence.
Then you went to Syracuse University,
Yes.
graduated, and you went into finance.
Yeah, because I didn't know what to do, and I think most Nigerians, when asked, would say, "Well, you have to do something practical." And I think my first decision was to do economics. Then I said, "Well, I couldn't really see what was practical about economics," so I decided to study accounting. Then I started studying accounting. I realized that I needed something more creative, and I added finance. That's the most creative you can get in the School of Management at Syracuse. And so then that's why I graduated with finance and accounting.
So how did you transition from finance to tech and expanding your bandwidth?
Sure. So it started off with my desire to want to control my own life. So I was working at JP Morgan, and I remember a distinct moment. We were pitching this company, I think it was a $75 million bond deal. And I was thinking I wanted to be the guy on the other side of the table who was going to get $75 million to build his business. And I remember calling my mother after that and saying I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Because I just had this urge to kind of build and create. And under my mom's good counsel, she said, "Well, you should probably have a business in mind first," and which is that's when I decided to go to business school because I needed, in my mind, I was clear that after business school I would start a business of some kind. I didn't know what kind of business it would be. So even while I was at Harvard, I didn't have one job interview because I was certain that I wasn't going to have a regular job after graduating.
So, okay, so a lot of entrepreneurs are like, should I take $150,000 to start a business, or should I go back to business school and then start a business? What is your take on that? Because you were very deliberate when you're going into business school, knowing that you wanted to go into entrepreneurship. But why not take that money and start your business?
Yeah, so I think the way I would look at decisions like this is really about information, right? So what information do you have pre-business school and what information will you have post-business school? The money isn't really the issue because once you have the information, once you have the insight, around an opportunity, you can always raise the money. So I think that's a critical factor in deciding whether you should do anything, is that you have sufficient information.
That makes sense, because that's the thing a lot of people battle with. It's like, oh, should I take all this, loans and go back to business school, and then I'm an entrepreneur, but how am I going to pay back those loans if I'm not interviewing at the big finance companies or the consulting companies and things like that? So
yeah, it's a mystery. No one knows. No one knows how these things work. But there's an equation between risk and reward, between fear and faith. And you never really know what those pivot points are.
So how did Hopstop come about?
So Hopstop came. So I was on a date on the Lower East Side, and I remember getting lost in the subway, and I remember being late. And so I woke up the next morning. It's like this. I have to find a solution to this problem. And I walked down to the subway station, pulled out a subway map, came back to my apartment, laid it on the table, on the floor, and got my Excel spreadsheet, because that was the only tool I could use. It's like, well, how would I describe the subway system to a developer so they can then write the code, right? Because I still can't code.
Right.
I couldn't even change an HTML website, right? But I knew that this was possible. So with that information, I then found a developer in Russia to build the very first version of Hopstop. And day after day, product after product, feature after feature, kept on improving the service. Yeah.
And how long did it take from idea to sort of like the first, like the beta phase, for example?
Yeah, I'll probably say a year.
Okay.
Year of just really, because it's that the technology was really, because it was like we were the first to really kind of really create this seamless experience between transit and walking. So the initial algorithm was very difficult, and obviously with as time passed, the changes became much easier.
And then how did you raise capital? Because that's usually
no, it was tough. It was tough. They tell you it's really tough. And so my best advice in terms of even raising funds is start that conversation early, right? Just have that informational coffee with anyone that's potentially could be your investor, because I think investing is it's actually worse than dating. Not that dating is bad, but it's like getting married, right? So I don't care who the person is. You're not gonna accept a proposal, even if they're the best person in the world, right? So you need time to pass. And so you should definitely start working whatever relationships you have as soon as possible. And I didn't have that because I came from the finance world. So I didn't have the tech VC contacts. Right. I didn't know who to talk to. So I would just go to these pitch meetings and have my one pager for Hopstop. And then the gentleman that I worked for IDT then saw me. He asked me to come to New Jersey. I pitched them Hopstop, and they wrote me a check for $50K, which was the first bridge loan I needed just to keep the servers up on Hopstop. Then they eventually raised I think $1 or $2 million from IDT. Then another round of financing from another group of investors.
Basically, it's one thing to raise money. It's another thing for you to make money, to keep yourself going. Oh,
I see. Yeah. So how do you? Obviously, you have to find a business whether you can have investors will fund you, or you can have cash flow from your customers, right? That's how you keep. That's how you pay yourself. Obviously, I'm not sure I was taking much of a salary, if at all. But it's something every business has to kind of deal with. But the end goal should be creating something that's more valuable than the cash flows. I don't think Apple bought the company because of our cash flows. So certain cases, a certain scale, that's important. So you have to be clear on why you're building the business. But for us, we didn't think too much about the acquisition. We just thought wanted to create a product that people wanted to use, and the revenue model we had was through ads. So we were making money, but obviously it's not the kind of revenue that would be the reason why a company would buy you.
So I read somewhere that you said that after a point you could no longer run the business, and you had to, what was the word you used? I cannot remember now. You had to sort of humble yourself and sort of like take a step away. At what point did you realize, okay, I can no longer run this business because it's either because you wanted to build a product or you couldn't run the business how you can fully let it grow and sort of like scale? What point did you make that decision?
Yeah. So I started Hopstop in 2005, and I left as CEO in 2009. So I ran Hopstop for 4 years, and for me it was a pretty clear decision because I think I was a great product CEO, right? Where there's a market need and what's the right products to solve it and optimizing that product. I think certain CEOs can be product CEOs, can be growth CEOs and IPO CEOs. That wasn't my own blessings, and for me, my sweet spot and areas that I want to continue doing is in that first. The moments where the concept isn't yet clear, the product isn't quite hasn't aligned with the market's opportunity as well. I think that's what excites me most, and that's the thing I think is better than most people. So that's the area I like to continue working in, and I'm sure there are other very capable people who can do all the other parts of the value creation process.
So there's a whole thing about tech in Africa right now. Your story is interesting because you created technology for the global market. What are your thoughts of what's going on? You know, it's like tech in Africa is the next big thing. Mark Zuckerberg was in Lagos and in Kenya. I don't want to say why Africa and why now, because we know it's always been there. But why do you think there's a global interest?
In Africa,
the continent?
Yeah, I think it's very timely. First of all, with issues with Mark Zuckerberg's visit to Nigeria, was that really lit just the attention on Nigeria. But the opportunity has always been there, and the question is like, what are we doing to kind of take advantage of the opportunity? I think what Andela is doing is wonderful, and I think there'll be hopefully classes of post-Andela alums who start up other companies that solve local problems in Nigeria. I think that will be the ideal situation. But I think what Andela is doing is wonderful.
So I actually did computer science for 2 semesters in undergrad. I was sitting in the labs. I actually discussed this with one of the Andela co-founders. I did not get coding. I did not get writing program. It just did not make sense to me because I didn't see anyone that looked like me, and I just wasn't interested. So for someone like myself, how do I get that technical skills? Because everyone's like, tech is everything now.
Yeah. You actually don't need technical skills. I would encourage any business person to actually not even focus on the technical. They should understand the high level concepts, but if anything, technical skills actually could limit your own opportunities. The way I think of it is really the real information technology is technology that happens in your head. Its ability to think about things differently and see things that other people don't, right? And people who have an ability to tap into that are the people who, I think in my mind, can build and create, right? Because it's there, right? All Uber was there before Uber was there, Amazon was there, Apple was there. All those great concepts have always been there, and the great concepts in next year are here today. Right. So I think the real technology is inspiring ourselves and inspiring each other and ourselves to be able to tap into that inspiration that then shows you the things to do, like what opportunities are that you're missing. Because I think the way most people approach life is it's routine, and anything that's routine, you see things like everyone sees it, and so it's always good to pause through life and have some kind of practice, some sort of prayer that allows you to get into that creative space and then be able to see opportunity when it comes.
So what inspires you? It's clear that your product, you like to solve problems, some capacity, and create product. But beyond that, what inspires you to sort of like get up every day and think about a new idea and executing that idea into a product and then a business?
Yeah. I think what you said was exactly right. I'm so fascinated by problems. I actually look for problems. I literally look for problems. And it could be the most random, anything that bugs me, anything I notice in life, because those are the seeds of the next business idea. So whenever I'm in any situation, I just feel like, well, how am I feeling? Like, is there anything that would make my life better right now? What this experience, this transaction, how would it have been better for me, right? And I constantly think that, right? And that allows you to then start seeing things that other people have missed. And for me, that's the biggest, that's the biggest gift I want people to realize. Like, all the things, the moments between, there's just one moment between what you are today and what you could potentially be, right? It's just one moment, right? And just you always being aware that that moment is always following you around, right? And being clear that you can tap into that, and you just need to figure out how to tap into it.
So there are a lot of issues when it comes to, in quotations, diversity in tech. I was at a dinner not long ago, and I think it was about 15 African American Black women, and I'm not a techie. I don't even know why I was invited to this dinner, but I was there. And just listening to these women, they were like, okay, these companies claim there's no, they don't have the sort of, what's what I'm looking for, talent. The big companies, but I am here. I went to this school, did engineering, went to this business school, or I've worked at this company and that company. I got 2 calls, and then they forgot about me. But then my counterparts who don't look like me got wine and dine, flown here, flown there. What can corporate companies do to increase diversity? Because I've seen the talent there in terms of like these women who are talking, and men as well too. So what can these companies do better, and what can we as well do better? Because I think it's a dual conversation that has to be had.
Yeah, I think this is a very long conversation,
Yeah.
but I think if someone elected me and wanted me to fix this issue, I think I would approach it in a much more holistic way than just the diversity statistics. I would look at, well, what are the policies around underrepresented communities? Like, what are the actual communities, and what can be changed? And as I look at the landscape of opportunity in America, it's just shocking that the leadership have come up with so few ideas to really change the narrative, and it's the same conversation over and over again. And while I think diversity is key, diversity is value, diversity is always what we should all do, because that allows everyone to kind of contribute their peak. But I think I would approach it in a more holistic manner than just looking at the statistics.
So holistic would be more sort of digging deeper.
Yeah, what the economic policies, what education policies, right, that causes these discrepancies, right, and really get to the heart of it while pushing the other agendas, because the other agendas can be multi-generational, and one could be kind of topical. And I think for the amount of what's at stake, I'm just shocked at the level of thought leadership in this issue.
Right. So Hopstop, what is RapalaG?
Yeah, RapalaG was a lead generation company for travel agents and travel specialists.
I see.
Yeah. So if you wanted to go to say you want to do a wine tour in South Africa, you probably can't do that on Expedia. Right. And so what we did was we'll connect you with a travel specialist that focused on wine tours in South Africa.
And you sold that as well?
Yeah, we sold it to Rand McNally, and Rand McNally ended up selling it to USA Today. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That's for Nigerian. I'm like, okay, big ups.
Yeah, well, I mean, nothing.
Well, your team as well, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just the team, but like, I think people should just be careful what they read and what they talk about. At the end of the day, the entrepreneurial process is tough, right? There's no joke. It's hustle. It's you looking into the abyss and trying to figure out if you're stupid or crazy, right? It's about you having to figure out if you should really go to the dinner because you might not afford the meal after. Sure, if your investment banker friends will spend too much on booze. Those are real questions as an entrepreneur, and it's not something you should do lightly. Or like if there are other ways to to build value than being an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur is a certain type of attitude towards risk, and you just have to be comfortable with that before agreeing to go on the ride.
And have you tried to, now you have GigaMeet. What is GigaMeet?
Yeah, GigaMeet is a platform that allows anyone to make money by sharing their experience or expertise with others.
Okay.
So because everyone has experience, everyone has knowledge, but right now, unless you were to become a consultant, right, you can't really share it. So the way GigaMeet works, you register with your LinkedIn profile, and you can end up giving the money you make to charity of your choosing if you like. But just the whole goal is to allow people to share information with each other more. And then we make money by charging a fee on the value that goes through.
So you link up individuals with companies? So is it
individuals? Yeah. So if someone had to speak to you about fashion or how to do a video series, right? They could sit down with you. You could share your expertise. Then you can leave. But that person would have to use lots of social capital. Hopefully they'll bump into you at some party somewhere to be able to contact you. So that's what GigaMeet does.
Okay, and that's launched already?
Yeah, it's just launched.
Okay.
It's a global platform, so you can have a Skype call with someone in Australia. You could have a call in Russia or Uganda. I think because with the amount of technology in the world, it's amazing how siloed we all are. Right? We can have tons of Twitter followers, but how many kind of real interactions do you have with people? How much sharing are you doing? And I think that's what my real goal for GigaMeet is, really allow people to kind of connect globally and just give people an incentives to take meetings that they would otherwise probably just ignore.
So for those of us, I know you give a lot of advice in terms of entrepreneurship. If you cannot sustain certain things or sort of sacrifice a lot, what advice would you give for the people who are running around with pitches and decks and just what advice would you give for young entrepreneurs or just anyone that wants to follow and chase their dreams?
So I go back to the mind. Just sharpen your minds, because that's you have all the answers, right? Everyone is full of creative potential, and it's up to you to own that power. And if you don't recognize it, you'll never use it, right? So I think the first thing is just inspiring, as I said, just really inspiring, staying inspired, right? So having conversations with people who inspire you, but also then thinking, and not just sometimes I feel like people have placeholders of what they should do, but if you're doing that, you're just like everyone else. So I go back to thinking and insight. So I would say, forget your business plan, just step back and just think. It's amazing, like a simple thing, but it's amazing what that can do. Just thinking, just spending time and really thinking through the details. And I think once you do that, things will start being clear to you. So the best way of visualizing this is, think of it as, imagine you were using, an Apple map, and you typed in New York and you were zoomed out, and you were to kind of zoom in, right? And I think that's what insight and thinking does. It's like you look in and you look further and you see all the roads, and here's how to get to your destination, because you can actually see the road network. And it's clear to you. Then you can you can pack your bags, you're confident that you can go because you know the road. But if it was zoomed out, then it's still a blur. And the blur it's hard to make a blur a real thing. So the closer the more insight you have by thinking about it, by resting your mind on a particular problem or opportunity, it just becomes clear to you what the answer is, and most people don't do that.
And what does failure mean to you?
Failure for me is just really a lack of missing out on opportunity for your potential. I think that's really for me what potential is, because I feel I'm capable of many great things, and I think everyone is. So I think if I had to leave a message, it's like really tap into what your own, whatever that superlative in your life is, that's available to you, and pursuing that.
I think you've left a great impact when it comes to technology, when it comes to being a migrant in America, being Black, working in tech. But what other impact would you like to, let's say, what legacy do you want Chinedu's legacy to be?
Sure. I think my biggest like my ideal legacy would be to play a role in helping other people unleash their own creative power. I think for the amount of press and how much we talk about entrepreneurship, society really makes it very, very difficult to become an entrepreneur. And I think that can be changed. And I think that's what my legacy, that's why I want my legacy, to build a company or to build things that allow people to turn their ideas into things faster. So that's because I think that's what will make the whole world better off, right? So that kid in Uganda that has this vision, right, can actually make it happen, right? So if the kid in Uganda can make it happen, then the kid in Australia can make it happen, and the kid in Utah can make it happen. I think so. All we're doing is really tapping into the value that all of us have individually, but we can't manifest it. So there's a problem with the world. So I think my vision is to build companies or companies that can stitch together all that's required to turn an idea into something that's real.
How can we change the narrative about what it is to be a migrant, to be an immigrant, and to assimilate or to acclimate into a culture?
Yeah, I think first of all we have to get rid of the labels. Yeah, I think I'm an immigrant, yes, but I don't think of myself as an immigrant. So again, if you are what you think, if what you see is what you think, then by labeling yourself an immigrant, you've already kind of removed yourself from a certain narrative and lens, right, which other people haven't. So I don't tend to think of things in that particular way. But what I would say though is for them to think big, right? And there's nothing, no one can stop the thoughts in your mind, right? So go crazy. Just, think the biggest thought you can possibly think, right? And then think through it, right? Then act on it. Because you might as well do that instead of doing something that's easy. Think a very bold thought, because it's possible, and especially in tech. I mean, other things require so much capital, so many relationships, but especially in technology, the ability to go from an idea in your head into a product or a service that millions of people use, there's no other time in human history that's been possible. So for me, it's just an exciting time for the combination of just creative power and opportunity.
So 5 things Chinedu does that led to his success that others can learn from.
5 things. So I think just one is, I always go back to creativity because for me it's a source of so much of human wealth, right? It's just our minds can build so much. Anything, even this building was first a thought in someone's head. And so the first thing is just nurturing your creativity, figuring out how to tap into that thing that gives you new thoughts, gives every problem, even business problem, is a problem that can solve it if you have the right information. But if you're not plugged in, then you don't see the problem. It's just almost like a deer in headlights. You're just there looking at the problem and it hits you, right? But when you have information, because you're creative, it allows you to see the other options you've missed. So that's why I talk so much about creativity, because it's almost the easiest work to do, and sometimes the most valuable work, because all the other stuff, people tend to do that more than thinking and creating, right? People can do a job, but very few people can think a job. So I think that's what I would say is I spend a lot of time thinking about my creativity. Then the other is I try to keep on just tech news, because I think many models can be cut in different ways. So something that's applicable in micro insurance should be applicable in microfinance. So in market, like how does the blockchain fix into how does that relate to Nigeria's FX infrastructure, right? Foreign exchange infrastructure, right? So that's an interesting question, right? And if you dwell into that, so many things will come up from that exercise. So the more you read about other things that worked or other models, then it can allow you to kind of mix and match in different environments.
What was the one thing you wish you knew that you didn't know before you started your first venture?
Well, it's not that I wished I knew this, but I wish I wasn't so focused on it, right? Because you never know what the path to your end destination is, and you can obsess, you can have different plans, but you never know, right? You know, the things that led for whatever level of success I've had, the things I couldn't have planned it, and all I had to do was all I had was the intention towards the goal, but the actual set of events was totally out of my control. So that the mirage of a plan is really a mirage. So just don't worry about the mirage. Just have a clear picture in mind, and then just wake up in the morning and go to work. So that's my advice.
Well, I think you've closed off this interview extremely
Wonderful,
well, because I
wonderful.
think it's a daily. Sometimes you don't know why you do the things that you do, but there's just something in here you're like, I just have to do it. And you have the idea, and the path is not always clear, or you're so worried about the path to get there versus just kind of like you said, create a picture in your head and just let it manifest the way it's going to manifest. You never know what opportunities may come. And if you think about it too much, you miss out on those opportunities that come along your way. So
Exactly.
yeah, no, thank you. That was a good one, and yeah, I'm sure everyone would tell me I need to listen to that a little bit more. But it's okay.
I'm sure you will.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Chinedu, for your phenomenal words of advice. I think as a creative person, sometimes I try to deny my creativity. But I think I'm a business person, but no. I think you should really be who you are and let it manifest, and you will have the structure in place and the infrastructure in place to help you and grow to be the best you can possibly be. So thank you so much. And until the next one, thank you so much and take care.
Get it.